Hello and welcome to the Friday wrap-up powered by the Gockstein News Network. I am your host, Landy, and today is December 26th, 2025. And we do have kind of an inside bar for Bitcoin here on the daily. We're going to take a look at Bitcoin on the daily and on the weekly. And I'm going to present kind of the setup for both the bulls and the bears here coming into next week, where we will have, of course, the new year. So just be aware that the 31st is next Wednesday. So that is the last day of the year. And so it is a shortened trading week for the month, but of course it will be, I think, a full trading week. I have to actually go and double check. I don't remember anymore, to be honest with you. There might be a half day, if I remember correctly, and maybe a day off for the new year. I don't quite remember. We can always check on that on Monday, and I can get back to you. But we're going to take a look at, of course, Bitcoin today. We'll follow up with silver, which just annihilated the $75 target and went for a weekly area at $80, which was always a possibility. Didn't know if we were going to see it right away, and we actually did. So, if I was looking at it on Wednesday, I would have likely said that 80 is on the table, because 70 and the $70 target was already hit after I did my video on Monday, and we were headed towards that $74 to $75 target. And then, of course, today absolutely ripped right through it. We actually hit target on gold. And then, of course, we'll wrap it up by taking a quick look at traditional markets. But we're going to start with Bitcoin here today. And, this is a whole lot of nothing has changed, realistically. When looking at what's going on with Bitcoin here, there is a hidden bearish divergence that's playing out. On the other side of that, we could see some regular bullish divergence. If we do see, price closing around 88.5, technically we would see it above 88,000, but really doesn't do too much. I would even want to see it closing above the basis here at 88,650. And again, we would have to see this lower high swing taken out, and this is at 90,541 now. Now we do have, some rising swings here off of the actual primary low down here at 80,500, $80,000 on some exchanges. But here on spot, it's 80,500 right on that weekly. And in this case, to set a low, which would populate one drive of regular bullish divergence, we would need to see closes above 88. That doesn't do a whole lot for me. I would need to see closes back above the basis around 88.5. And then, of course, we would need to see this lower high swing taken out at 90,541, like I was just saying. But even then it's right back to looking to the top side here. 93.5 is the weekly. But even before getting there, we've got a close open right here at around 91.3 before getting to like $92,000 and slightly above to 93, which was a front run of that weekly at 93.5. And not too much is happening on any closes below, the swings out of the top side of the range here. Now, above 93.5, there is 94 to 96, kind of some daily levels, and then 96 is the point of control. I would need to see that, 94.5, 94,640 to 96 taken out to go and test the lows over here, which is right at a major weekly around 98 to 101. And of course, there's another weekly just above there at 102.5 that could potentially come into play if we do see a rise to the upside. Back to the downside, if we start to drop 86,350, expect $86,000, which is another weekly level to get hit. That would also put Bitcoin below the lower first and headed towards the lower second standard deviation, which is now in line with the closing low thus far on the daily at 84,684. Anywhere below there, it's expansion to, 84, 83.5, 84, which is between these two wicks here. And anywhere below there, we're looking for a run back to $80,000 and potentially under. in the shorter term, like if we did see closes below that 84,684, and then we start seeing closes below, 80, 83.8, 83.5, there is the lower third right there at 82.5, which is a monthly level on a close open. But realistically, I'd be looking for expansion to continue to fill out this wick here, that 80,000 to 78 level that I've been talking about for quite some time. And just to kind of visualize that, let's go ahead and we'll turn off these two horizontal rays. And we'll go down here to the weekly zones of support and resistance here. Again, this inflection point within these two weeklies between 93.5 and $86,000, those weekly closes, we have the swing, higher low and lower high coming in right around $89,000 at a major fib level for me. And that's right where the basis band is. If we start seeing Bitcoin trade back above 89, then we can start looking to, the Friday wick here at 89.5 to potentially the highs over here at 90,541, right? Note that there is a close open right on this fib level. You can't quite see it here on this chart at the moment, but it's a 1.168 or 16.8%. It is a macro fib level right around 88.7, 88.8 region where that lower high swing came in. And of course, we had the higher low right here at around 89. If we do see Bitcoin trading and closing dailies below 86, I would expect, the lows here, 84 to 83.5 to get run. And of course, that's where we start looking anywhere below there to the next big weekly level, around 80,000 to 78. Anywhere below 78, we're looking at the mid 70s being the next play, right? And kind of anywhere between 78 and that 74.4 region are fair game. And of course, that's the higher low swing down there at 74.4. From the monthly and from the big April sell-off. So, and of course, back to the upside, just to kind of contextualize things back above 93.5, which is that major weekly level. We haven't seen any closes above it after entering this zone back on November 17th. And of course, we've swung above it a few times, some wicks above it, but no closes above it. We do start seeing closes above it. That's where I'm looking, 94 to 96, the point of control. Then above there, that 98 to 101. And potentially, even in the shorter term, if we did see price in this area, we could even look up to that 102.5 to the next major fib level at the 1272 at 103,650 or so. Beware that if Bitcoin does rally out of these weeklies here and above the point of control into this weekly zone, 98 to 101, and even start closing above, it doesn't mean a whole lot, to be quite honest. This is a big, big, big weekly zone with other weeklies in it, and of course a bunch of daily traffic. But recall that the major weekly level that we broke down from was 107 to 108. We had a perfect retest of that area. Now, if Bitcoin did get above 102.5, 103,650, we can start entertaining trips to 105, where this close open came in, to that 107 to 108 region. But I'm not looking, shorts can cover into all of these weekly levels, but I wouldn't be looking for any kind of a squeeze, like an aggressive squeeze, until I saw dailies and of course, a weekly closing above 112. And even then, shorts have cover. But, they would definitely be, definitely be covering into those areas. I don't know if there's liquidity keeps getting wiped out. Locally, both to the long and the short side, especially as this is squeezing in this major weekly level. So it's, the next moves are going to be likely pretty violent when they do get rolling, either to the upside or downside to grab the liquidity either at the lows or head up and grab liquidity from some of that overhead resistance. And then we kind of take it day by day, week by week from there. Now, I'm going to get rid of the support and resistance areas of interest, and let's go ahead and take a look at daily momentum real quick. You'll see that if we did, for RSI, if we did close a low up here, because this would be a lower low with a higher low swing as it relates to this guy here. I think is it going to be there? So one of these in here, I saw it because it was starting to populate. I think it's this one here. It's like a slight divergence, a bullish divergence. We do have Bitcoin pushing the edge of the bearish control zone for the regular Stoke. This is not a Stoke RSI. Um, you know, just understand if this turns down or rejects here, we're likely plumbing the bottom side of the weekly here, 84 to 86, and maybe even down to 83.5 as a final stand for the bulls over here at this swing low of the closing low. And that's the candle that put in the closing low, not the actual swing low at 80,500. But likely if we were to see this drop, we're likely running that area anyway. Let's look at the weekly because that's going to be the big thing to pay attention to. And I do want to just take a look here since the actual dump off. So since getting into this zone on a close, we've now been down here, or will have been down here for, let me actually get the right measurement tools here. That would be helpful, huh? This will be 5 weeks. So yeah, right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This will be the 6th week once it closes. And then we were down here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. So we're kind of approaching that time period where, I wouldn't be surprised to see a bounce from this area. Of course, it's all contingent on the actual low holding at a close from a weekly standpoint. Understand that the lower second is now right within striking distance of this this actual low at 80,500, right? So when looking at the weekly level down here, this is still viable as a target to the downside. It's actually, it's more viable than not. We've got 78 to 74, but if you look at this whole zone that Bitcoin is looking to encroach on here with the lower second, it's going to start swooping back price. And after getting that initial expansion, if Bitcoin remains below the lower first on closes, more likely to retest that lower second, even if it is a lower low, as long as it's closing above 80,500, then there could be a potential low set, which would be a lower low, lower high swing with a lower high close if it did anything like this and closed in here and started to run down. But I'd be looking for this move to kind of, get a decent bounce sooner rather than later if it doesn't do it from here directly. And that's where we can entertain, moves, of course, back to this 93.5 above there. Then we can start entertaining that 98 to 101 initially, right? And there is, of course, the point of control right in here around $96,000. That is the most volume traded price still in this area. So just understand what we're looking at. Big thing to pay attention to is, coming into the weekly close, we do have a potential cross. This is a counter trend signal. This is not actionable. It's not actionable on any closes, below the actual swing lower high here at 94,640. But we do have a counter trend signal still in place and likely to continue, but start to flatten out, which isn't really good. 85,282 is going to be the pivot for that. That is going to update. We're not even close to, looking like this is ready yet for even a bounce just yet in earnest. Like even if it does start to bounce off the edge of the bearish control zone with a counter trend signal for stoke momentum pointing to the upside, it still takes a little while to play out, and very, very highly likely would not be a mature signal until we saw close over close turn up in both, and then a RSI cross for the moving average there that I was just looking at on RSI. So it is getting close. Beware of shots to the downside though, but I think it is getting close to where we might start seeing a bounce. It's just a matter of, do we get a shot to the downside before a concerted bounce on the weekly, or do we bounce directly from here? But I do think it's starting to get close. The 2 week is going to be closing this weekend as well. That's still got some downside. It's going to be entering the bearish control zone for the first time since The bear to bull market structure back here, when we started to, well, it wasn't even bull market. This was bear market to a trend break, when we started to pull out of the lows from December of 22 into January of 23. So this is a very low level, but there's no bearish or bullish divergence rather populating anywhere on here. It's not close to a signal yet. And realistically, the signal might fire late, considering the structure that we have going on here for the 2 week, but it is getting to some interesting levels. Understand that if it does drop the lower second standard deviation on the 2 week, like anywhere below $80,000, and we start seeing a weekly close below there. So this is why it's so important that what I'm saying about the potential for Bitcoin to go to the upside from here is that it needs to close above this 80,500, because if it closes there on the weekly, it's going to be continuation of downside expansion on the weekly, but it would also kick off downside expansion on the 2 week. And then understand it's the lows and the highs over here that are in play. And of course the highs over here. So we're looking anywhere from 58 on the weekly to the 73, right? That's a big zone before even considering like this thing. This would just be getting rolling on the 2 week for a downside expansion. So bulls need to hold up here, or it could get potentially pretty nasty. And that's, as long as Bitcoin's trading and holding on closes above 80,500 or so, then the bulls preserve the chance for a bounce out of here to the upside. And then we kind of come back to it from there. All right, let's go ahead and quickly take a look at silver and we'll wrap this up. I know the videos have been a little bit longer lately. I do apologize, but there is a lot of things going on that I think are important. We'll take a look at gold, because gold is right on our 2414, right around 4,500. It did trade slightly above on the daily here, and it hit 45.49, so 45.50 essentially. And this is another move out, nice breakout. This move is ongoing. It still has some juice down here from the volatility standpoint. It is getting towards some pretty critical levels. So if it does put in a high next week, that's when we can start entertaining a correction, back down initially here and then start working the dailies below it. But potentially, correction back. But this is a move that's ongoing to the upside. Next big level is going to be 46 to 46.25 by the upper third. And, that it could very well even run past that to 46.50. So understand that is on the table. Weekly is 4,600. Yeah, 4,600's where it's at on the weekly. This is likely going to be up towards 46.50 when it opens on Monday, and that would be what I'd be entertaining to the upside. Could there be more? Absolutely. But best estimate from volatility point of view and the cool down here would be around 46 to 46.50 to the upside. Nice close on the weekly right at that 2414. So even if it does correct from here, I'd be looking back to the 44 to 4300 area. And then as long as it's trading above essentially 42.50 by the weekly upper first, 42.75 or so, it still preserves the opportunity to keep hitting these highs and potentially swing higher. And but if it starts to get below there, then things are going to probably correct pretty hard. Let's go ahead and take a look at silver. Silver with what a beautiful candle up. And this is, from the weekly standpoint, this is targeting 90 now. So the 1272 has been hit and closed above on expansion. It's running hot. It's 100 over 98 for volatility right now. This is running hot, but that, as it continues and it's still outrunning the bands here, the bands will swoop up and over 90, 95, 100 even. And that would allow, even if it's might be getting towards the end of the move, that would allow those areas to be hit. 90 bucks is on the table now, coming into next week, first part of next year. And yeah, daily right up and above. looked beautiful. Look at that. That Wednesday half session was already pushing and closing above 70, closed around 71.81. And that was bringing my targets up to 75 and beyond. You'll see the upper seconds there right at 75 now, chasing the upper third, kind of capping things off. We're just above 80 now, but 80 kind of is the name of the game here as the next big whole number to hit. And then 90 is absolutely on the board. And as long as it's trading and closing above $70, it's going to preserve its chance to continue marching on. I would say 80 to 85 is the next big one before hitting the 1,414 at 90, and then 95, $100 from there. There is, some structure that will pull on Monday that might be relevant. Weekly is absolutely vertical here, looks beautiful, and no signs of slowing down just yet. Is it getting up there? Is it getting critical? Yeah. So it's all about watching where it goes next week and first part of January. To see if we're going to get a daily correction that moves into a weekly correction. But as it stands right now, this is re-expansion to the upside, and it's looking hot. It's looking good. Yeah, you can tell the re-expansion to the upside, just dropping the lower second and lower third on the weekly after these couple of closes, and with this week's close, really pushing it up there. Outrunning that upper third is going to be the name of the game, and it's at $80 right now. It didn't quite close above it. But it did get very close. Something I probably should have called out on Wednesday, but I usually do, or on Monday, but I didn't have a video Wednesday. So I'll remember to take a look on Monday again at the weekly, just to remind everybody where it's at, what's going on there. Dow, it doesn't look great on the daily. This is a pretty indecisive candle, but again, we're coming in towards the end of the year. We'll see what it opens at on Monday. Nothing too crazy. Needs to get above the all-time high now at 48,890, 49.9 area, and then we can start entertaining trips to, 49 to 49.3 up here by the upper third. That would be acceptable for Dow from here. And we've got a little bit of a different structure here, which kind of makes me a little cautious here. But we had the upper first hit. We need to see a close above that to actually run the local highs. And realistically, anywhere below the local highs, we're looking probably for a correction on the daily. And then kind of, 25,835, anywhere above there, looking to the upper second, realistically, to the highs. So that's anywhere around 26,000 to the actual all-time high at 26,182, with the potential for 26,250 to 300 by the upper third. Beware of a correction back to the basis around 25,400, 25,450. Anywhere below there, we're going to have to start looking, and I do mean on closes, because we do have a little bit of a gap that could be filled around 25,346, 350 area. But anywhere closing below the basis, likely going to head back down towards that lower first, 25 to 25.1. And from the weekly standpoint, this avoided the lower high. It closed the week green. It's got higher low swings. If it takes out the high here at 25,835, it's probably going to go back to the highs here. Around that 26.2, 26.3 area, and potentially more, if it does get there. It's a nice buyback last week into this week. So, and we're starting to look at this probably it is turned up, but likely fully turned up for momentum on the weekly for NASDAQ, and even RSI is looking for a signal coming into next week as well. We had, can't fade this. Can't fade this on SPY closing all-time high and a new daily all-time high. So look, the 695 700s are on the board now. Weekly's likely going to push up towards 697 to 700 coming into next week by the upper second, and as long as it's staying above the upper first here at 680, 681, it's looking fine to keep rolling. Now, granted, it did throw a doji as well, so be aware of corrections on the daily. But it's upper second's going to be 692, And then we're looking 695 to 700. Upper third's going to move towards 700 coming into next week. As long as it's trading above 688, 690, I'd say 688. Looking good. Of course, if it closes below there, that'd be a high. Looking for a correction back towards the basis band somewhere around 680 to 683 initially. And as long as it's closing above, this is 680 lower first to 683 by the basis. Sorry, I said it, but didn't point to it. 680 is right around here to 683. That'd be the corrective area to look at. And if it did bust through, as long as it's closing above 671, it's fine. But this looks like it could very well want to get continuation into next week. So looks good. And it avoided a double top. So it was looking like it was going to do a double top. But remember what I said. It didn't close it. And where did it need to close to actually put in the double top? It needed to close below 679, 680, depending on what it is that you're looking at. For SPY, SPX, it was 679. So, yeah, or 67.91 for SPX. So, look, it avoided the double top. It's headed back to the upside. That's the name of the game. And I had very specific criteria. If it was going to put in a double top, it needed to close that weekly below there, and it didn't. Nice buyback, march back to the upside. So between Dow and SPY, I think that NASDAQ might just be playing catch up. It's just a matter of if it falls apart or not coming into the first part of next year for NASDAQ, because that'll start to pull liquidity out of the other indexes. So that's going to be it for today. I hope you all had a Merry Christmas and a great holiday if you don't celebrate Christmas. And I hope that you have a wonderful weekend and, of course, a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe. And, of course, as always, stay safe. With all of that being said, Landy out. Take care. Talk to you Monday.